From the natal chart, you see the predisposition to life and to nature, and you see the setup that you see the game plan that you're going at. You see the matrix. And then you begin to, by the time we get to transits, we see how things evolve and change and challenge around the matrix, and how we develop experiences every moon with the moon cycle, every 3 months with Mercury cycle, every 9 months with Venus cycle, every year with the Sun cycle, 2 years with Mars cycles, 12 years Jupiter, and 30 for Saturn, 29 and a half. So each planet has its own phases, its own cycles. We learned that these timings came in that went around, that and by the time we get to this level, we're familiar with those timings. We've seen how they work, and that they actually are the timing of nature. It's the music of God. It's the timing of nature. And we picked it up at we came into the symphony at a certain point. Here's our score. Here's what we got to play. We're going to play it. So this is going on, and we can live up to, we have times when we build up to the peak of career. There's times when we go down and work on ourselves. There's times when things outwardly fall apart, and sometimes at times when we grow really deeply inwardly. So we begin to see the timings and changes that happen to people generally across a lifetime, the standard of life. So then once we got to know the transits and work with that, a lot of astrologers just work with natal chart and transits, so they don't even get to the mystical sides of things. For psychology, this behavioral side, it will follow it up to the transits and easily use that energy in a very behavioral manner. So at that point, but after level 7, you're expedient with knowing transits and progression, knowing about time and life and the challenges involved with it. And you've watched it through your life and a few other people's, and you're doing people's charts for sure by then if you weren't doing them way before that. You're just expanding what you can do. The eighth level, really, the whole 8th level was in preparation for this level for the class. It expanded the signs of the zodiac. It expanded different layers of thinking, expanded different understandings, that what we learned was just a basic scale, a basic mechanic. And there's so many other ways of going more deeply into it. In transits, going into the degrees, into the pentans, into the subpentans, in a natal chart, you can do it to a certain amount, but the transit's a certain amount, but there's enough going on that you have plenty to work with. When you get to progressions, you need these extra depths. These extra depths, these extra things start to mean things, start to be able to show and reveal themselves. So we had to see the 3 zodiacs. We saw, there was the tropical, the sidereal, and the zodiac of constellations, and the 3 different ways of measuring a cycle. That has been different branches of astrology over the millennia. But then we saw the northern and the southern hemisphere reversed. So we saw we had to change the signs to the southern hemisphere because the signs of the zodiac follow the seasons. The houses go across the day, and we can know the houses are different than the signs. We would learn that because the houses are the hours of the day. And just the 3rd house, which is the darkest time just after midnight, it's not the same as the 3rd sign, which is building up the greatest brightness of the year. One's a 2-hour period of a day, the other is a 2-month period of the year. And they're different lights and darkness. So anyways, we kept these things as different, which allows us, it's like we have a left and a right eye. We're looking at the signs of the houses, each one's its own chart. And astrologers put them together on the one wheel. And there's discrepancies become, so we come into this. So we got to the southern hemisphere, then we went through color, where you could use color more than words, and colors express the things more than words, and the color. So we got the sense of the color, and then the colors had to reverse with the southern hemisphere, like the seasons, the hot colors and the cold colors for summer and winter. And then we went into 8-fold divisions of the zodiac, and we went into 8-fold divisions of the houses. Oh, we also did the just going over the class of what we went through. We went through a lot of different techniques of building up different layers and different ways of dividing the zodiac, observing the zodiac and the houses in different ways. We looked at the nodes, we looked at parallels, at contraparallels. We looked at all of these things, and these are all factors that, while you could try and make sense of them as add-ons to your natal chart, and we will do that to a certain degree, but in knowing them, when we start seeing the progressions make these smaller factors come alive. These subdivisions and these other things come alive because they last longer, they're faithful, we have longer to think about it, we wonder about it, and it builds up this scope. So it's like we used a telescope and suddenly we went from a size 40 lens, which is just a smaller magnification, you can get a big field, 40 millimeters, to a 9 millimeter where there's so much space, it's hard. If you find something with the 40 millimeter, it's hard to find anything with the powerful thing, because the stars don't get bigger, the space around it is, and you have to point the telescope to find them. Well, not these days, you can have digital ones, so they're way better. But whoops, I'm sorry, I better turn this off while I'm thinking about it. There, okay. So when we're coming up, then we looked at pentans and subpentans, and we looked at the hexagrams and the subhexagrams and the subhexagrams. We went down to very small divisions of the zodiac and found that there was some meaning there. That it seems incredible that you can go that deeply and still there's relevance and meaning we can draw from. It's a whole nother level than how we use the it's too much for a natal chart. But it's not in terms of trying to understand your soul or be sensitive. It works on other levels of sensitivity as we're growing. So then we brought in the stars, and we looked at the stars. We did a class on relationships to see how much involved in comparing two charts. That's a lot. Now, when you magnify all these extra techniques, you're never going to be able to compare everything from one chart to another. You're just tuning in to see some things in relationship. But the stars, 1/10 of the light from the stars hits only, all the stars together, they only represent 1/10 of the light that comes on the earth. 90% and our whole life force comes from the sun and its sunlight. 1/10 of the light, but those lights are all other suns that are way bigger than our sun. And they're shining out and they're sensitive to points that we can tune into, but we don't really conscious them physically. They happen on an imaginative or a thinking or a higher frequency level, where if we're lucky, we can tune into this. We can tune into the stars. So sometimes they have a place, but only if you're living up to them or living clearly enough to make room for them in your mind and ideas and in your path. So then it ran into the things where against the stars, there were old legends and teachings of man. For as long as there's been, they put messages, teachings into the stars so they wouldn't be forgotten, and they would be there, and they passed on and in some way or another survived over the centuries, over thousands of years. So now we're sitting looking at progressions. And so the simple concept, 1 second, I got to check something. Audio, okay. Now, excuse me, I'm just a little finicky about the oh, okay. It should be, oh, it is recording. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. I just double checked. Whew. Okay, so now we come up to the progressions, and we're starting to see a day for a life, and we're watching 90 days after we're born. Everything that happens in those 90 days has some effect on our life. It's like I was saying, if you fell at in your 6th week, so you're you're 40 days old and you fall, there's a big crash, there's going to be some phenomenal shakeup in your life in your 45th day or 42nd day. It'll rumble. So it's like it sets up a musical pattern, a pattern that rumbles and resonates and happens within us while we're going through progressions, while we're going through our life. But sometimes, here's where it gets really valuable. Sometimes progressions, you can have your transit. Saturn will get up to your midheaven. It's supposed to be a peak of your career and your status. You get up there and you don't want it. You don't make much of it. You just get past that. Why didn't I do anything with the Saturn in my midheaven? And you want, how come? Sometimes the progressions really are the inner guide behind how you're going to absorb the transit. So if your Saturn can be way up there, but if your progressed sun is way low in the chart, your confidence isn't up there. If your confidence is going way up in the midheaven and the Saturn comes up there, you're going to get really multiply how much you're going to be out there doing things and peaking. At the same time, your inner confidence is in doing that. What a huge difference. So I'm just jumping around. It's been 10 years since I really taught this class in English, and so many things have changed in that 10 years, both in astronomy, both in math and computers, how things are evolved. But I think when you first see progressions, that's the way to see it. So you take, we'll just do this quickly with, this is Carl Jung's chart here. So we'll just, he's a Leo, his sun is in Leo, 3 degrees Leo, we worked with his chart. So you're going to take your sun, whatever your sun's going to be in the sign it's in a certain degree, right? So each degree is like a day approximately. So that's how you figure it. His sun's at 3 degrees. So he's as a kid, he's the Leo. He's a pure Leo kid. But at 27 days later, the sun, 27 days after he was born, the sun went into Virgo. 27 years later, he's the Leo, but his inner world starts analyzing things and start going through a Virgo, goes into a Virgo phase. He's a Leo, but the Virgo theme is an inner burning light. And mercurial emphases and Mercury and the planetary rulership shift because the emphasis is moving not just from the sun and Leo, but it adds an emphasis to mental searching to the Mercury rulership of Virgo. And it's going to be in Virgo for 30 years, from 27 to 57 approximately, after which it goes into Libra. And it shifts to a focus of Libra, of the Venus rulership, of being appreciated, of values and what's worthwhile or what's not, or how well liked am I, or how you relate to me. So Leo, when you're first born, here I am. Don't you think I know what I'm talking about? Virgo phase. The Libra phase says, don't you love me? Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this we're sharing we're sharing things. And then every Virgo, every Leo, if they live long enough, eventually they're going to get into the Scorpio judgmental side. Not so glamorous when you're getting that older, but there's an intensity or a depth that can come out of it. So every sign is going to have the next 3 signs after it as their progressed sun, as their progression of their soul, of their heart and their soul through their lifetime. And sorry, just